was out to get right from the get-go. Initial reports said that Yahya Sinwar was killed during IDF operations in the Gaza Strip. The IDF says that 3 terrorists were eliminated in the strike. The IDF and the ISA are currently checking the possibility that one of the terrorists that was killed was Yahya Sinwar. At this stage, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, the identity of the terrorists cannot be confirmed. But in the building where the terrorists were eliminated, there were no signs of the presence of hostages in the area. The forces that are operating in the area are continuing to operate with the required caution, is what the Israeli Defense Forces has said. But the possibility that Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar, might be killed is something that the IDF currently is checking. My colleague Aditya Rajkol joins us on the broadcast here. Aditya, Yahya Sinwar, is that name that the IDF was out to get right from day one? It seems like they've done so. Of course, we must tread carefully. They're still checking the possibility of the same.
Well, yes, Kabir, it's a big development coming at this hour, at a time when the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza has been on for more than a year now. A big announcement coming in from the Israeli Defense Forces, not yet confirmed yet officially, but they're saying that in an operation in Gaza, there were 3 terrorists who were eliminated. And at this stage, the identity of terrorists cannot be confirmed. But in the building where the terrorists were eliminated, there were no signs of presence of hostages in the area. But one of the terrorists could be Yahya Sinwar. In fact, there are 3 photographs that we have also accessed here at News9. We're also playing in the Israeli media, which seem very, very much identical to Yahya Sinwar's facial features, features. It seems that it's imminent for the IDF and the Israeli government to announce the killing of Yahya Sinwar, major setback for Hamas, because after the killing of the chief of Hamas in Tehran, we had Yahya Sinwar taking over the command of Hamas, facing a lot of back from Gaza, but it's a big development that's coming.
Well, we're losing that line connection with Aditya. We're going to quickly try and patch that back. But like Aditya mentioned, this is a big development in the West Asian sector. Hamas's head, the chief of Hamas's political bureau, Yahya Sinwar, he might have been eliminated at the hand of an attack by the IDF, where 3 Hamas terrorists were killed, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. They're still checking the possibility of Sinwar's death. Aditya Rajkol back with us on the broadcast. Yeah, Aditya, going forward, it's again going to be very important to note here, because Yahya Sinwar is that person the IDF was bound to get right from the get-go. What's going to happen next? Is this going to embolden the IDF's expansion of operations inside Gaza, or do you think this is now time to pack things up and move back out? What do you think is going to happen with this big development now?
Well, certainly this will be a strategic win for Israel, a massive one after the latest round of...
And before we do that, Aditya, just to hold you on there, we've got latest visuals. Aditya, please hold on with us. I'm going to request the control room to put those visuals out. There you have it on your screens. Yahya Sinwar's pictures, the first pictures that are coming out at this point in time. The IDF is still checking. Of course, for on-air hygiene, we've had to blur these out. Mind you, this is another Israeli strike where 3 Hamas terrorists were killed. Back to you, Aditya. What next in terms of IDF operations in the Gaza Strip?
Well, yes, it's a big development if confirmed in the next couple of hours. The IDF was, in fact, looking for Yahya Sinwar from the very beginning of the war that actually began immediately after the 7th October attacks last year. And we had massive killings being reported in Gaza as well. A lot of Hamas infrastructure and Hamas, commanders and terrorists were eliminated as well. But after the killing of the top commander of Hamas in Tehran, in allegedly an Israeli strike, we now have, potentially big breaking news of Yahya Sinwar being eliminated. It will be a big, psychological defeat also for Hamas and its sponsors in the region. And we'll have to wait and watch how things, expand. Certainly, you will not see, IDF moving out immediately from Gaza. We'll also not see a massive expansion. But yes, they will try their best to locate other hostages that are there, still stranded in Hamas captivity in Gaza. But as I said, after the recent major killings of leaders from both Hamas and Hezbollah, there is yet another strategic win coming in for the Israeli Defense Forces at a time when there have been hard and heavy negotiations on the hostage deal as well as a ceasefire. Whether a ceasefire happens or not is a question that nobody can answer at this stage, because there hasn't been any kind of a positive movement be it the negotiators or from the both sides. So at this moment, the stalemate remains, but Hamas is also not ready for a full-fledged ceasefire or a hostage deal at this stage. But it's a big development coming, Yahya Sinwar, and the question certainly would be, now that Yahya Sinwar almost seems to be dead, confirmation awaited, who else would now take over the command of Hamas?
That's absolutely right, Aditya. And one also has to look at, because you rightly pointed out, you've got Nasrallah's killing, Fauj Shukr was killed recently. Now Yahya Sinwar has been added to that list. Of course, what next for Hamas is a big question. But what must be going around within the IRGC and, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini and the Iran's, political bureau? What must be happening over there?
Well, certainly in hectic negotiations, because, we've seen an unprecedented collaboration happening between Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis, as well as Iran, the epicenter of the support structure, be it the ammunition, money, or, moral support that's coming in from Iran to all these, proxies of Iran in the region. So, interestingly, we are also at a time when Iran is awaiting an Israeli attack, because remember, there have been several attacks that have happened recently, but we'll have to wait and watch how, Israel plans its attack now in the days when, they have had strategic wins both at Gaza as well as in Lebanon, a ground attack underway in Lebanon as well, a lot of territory that has been taken over, a lot of Hezbollah infrastructure has been destroyed, not to forget the pager blast that also took place and led to, again, a psychological kind of warfare in the region. And with this news of Yahya Sinwar, being eliminated and, confirmation awaited from the IDF, they're checking at this stage, it would be a big, big setback to the Hamas leadership, to the Hamas infrastructure, and how Hamas really operates, because they've seen a lot of recent killings in the recent past. One, they are awaiting Israeli operation against Iran, perhaps a direct attack, which the US and other players in the Middle East are trying to avert. And on the other hand, try to recuperate from the damages and the strategic defeat that they have faced from Israel of late. And next few days would be certainly crucial on what Israel does next. Will it wait for the US elections to conclude to launch a massive attack against Iran, or whether we'll see things escalate? Because certainly both Hamas, Hezbollah, as well as Iran would pledge to take revenge of Yahya Sinwar's killing, if that at all has happened now.
No, you're absolutely right. One will have to look at the US elections, but now that Yahya Sinwar is most likely, out of the equation, and Gaza Strip has been razed to the ground, Aditya, could one safely assume that this could be the very well fall and, the complete end of the Gaza Strip as we know it?
Well, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu at the very beginning of the war had said that this time around we are trying to create a new reality in Gaza. They had said that many years ago when Israel vacated Gaza, they had given the government thinking that democracy will be returning and there won't be any violence or militant groups rising in Gaza. But to the contrary, we saw Hamas taking over the command, the Islamic Jihad, and Hamas being very much active, and then of course through tunnels and through other methods launching attacks again against Israel. And this new reality would mean a new kind of governance structure perhaps in Gaza. Will that be handed over to the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, and his governance is a question that can be raised, and there are no answers at this stage. Who would really govern Gaza? Will there be United Nations involved or other Western powers? It's a long-fledged question right now. But certainly, as of now, the war continues. There's a lot still to be achieved for Israel in Lebanon, because Hezbollah is still active and they still have a huge arsenal of weapons and missiles and rockets that they continue to have. So one shouldn't imagine that the war is certainly over. There's much more that's likely to happen, both on the southern front in Gaza and the northern front with the Hezbollah in Lebanon.
The northern front, let's focus on that also for a little bit, because what's happened with, Yahya Sinwar and Hamas, and of course, the Gaza front. The northern front, we've seen with the pager explosions, we've seen with the walkie-talkie explosions, we've already seen how they've dismantled tunnel networks, much more sophisticated than the ones that we saw in the Gaza Strip. Could this embolden the IDF to go on and expand their offensive in Lebanon?
Well, certainly, of course. From the very beginning, Israel has been preparing for its war on the northern front. When the war began last year in October, they did realize that, the main task for them would be to tackle the Hezbollah, which is much, much more powerful than Hamas. They have much more men, they have much more equipment, they have technology, and they have missiles and rockets that they have been collecting and hoarding for years together, supplied from Iran and others in the region. So, of course, the Northern Front remains a challenge. We also saw initially, when the ground activity really began, a lot of casualties were reported with the IDF. The Israeli Defense Forces lost a lot of young soldiers, and many of them were injured as well. But since then, they have gathered a lot of territory. They've also tried to dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon, and tried to prevail over Lebanon and others not to interfere in this, because this was a direct confrontation happening between the IDF and the Hezbollah in the region. So that is certainly going to continue at least for the next few weeks until the US elections are over. But Iran recently has launched a barrage of rockets and missiles against, ballistic missiles in fact, against Israel, and for that there hasn't been a counter. IDF and the Israeli government has said that they will do so at a place and time of their own choosing, and that will happen soon. So one awaits that attack, and amid that, understanding of an Israeli attack taking imminent, we have this news of Yahya Sinwar, which will certainly shift focus towards the Middle East yet again, and how things shape and perhaps are instigated. And Iran, as I said, would be pledging an attack to, take revenge against Israel for this killing.
How probable is that at this point in time, Aditya? Because we saw that after Nasrallah was eliminated, there was that barrage that you pointed to right now. But do you think that this successive falling of Iran-backed proxies and their leaders is going to sort of push the Iranian political bureau and Khomeini on the back foot, or is that barrage of missiles that was planned is going to happen in any case?
Well, yes, the barrage of Iranian ballistic missiles did not do much, although Iranians claimed that a lot of Israeli equipment and military bases were attacked, and a lot of fighter jets also faced this attack and were destroyed. But the Israeli defense minister and others came out and said that not much was destroyed. In fact, the only killing that took place was of a Palestinian man, unfortunately, when one of the major shells from that rocket actually fell on him. There was no other casualty that was reported across Israel. But yes, there was damage to some houses, some infrastructure in this entire process, because the Iron Dome was very successful in trying to, thwart majority of the rockets and the ballistic missiles that came in from Iran to Israel. But certainly all eyes are now on this entire region and how things will shape up. We are awaiting an official confirmation from the IDF and the Israeli government, or whether the three terrorists who were killed just hours ago in Gaza, whether Yahya Sinwar was one among them. You would remember, Kabir, that a couple of weeks back, there was another speculation about Yahya Sinwar being killed, because for over a month he was not spotted anywhere across Gaza, and that rose to do a lot of conclusions in Israel that there could be a possibility of him being killed. But now, photographs, at least 3 in number, being released by sources in the IDF, clearly indicating that the man could be Yahya Sinwar. But yes, we are awaiting official confirmation both from Hamas and the IDF, and perhaps that would be imminent in the next 1 hour.
No, you're absolutely right. And because these pictures have surfaced on the internet and online, one has to be wary and careful about, lots of, fake images that are doing the rounds, the deep fakes that we've been covering for a long time now. All of that is at play as well. But then again, like Aditya pointed out, some corroborated sources have put out these pictures, but we're still going to wait for the IDF to come out with the actual confirmation. These are the pictures that we're talking about at this point in time. Now, Aditya, one also has to look at all the aspects. Why miss out talking about West Bank as well, the old Jerusalem area? Do you think there's going to be some sort of impact in that area, particularly the place, where the Temple Mount exists?
Well, yes, you've seen during the Iranian attacks also, there was continuous barrage of rockets that came in near the Temple Mount. Thankfully, there was no destruction in that area. The Iron Dome was successful, but there was those horrific images from the Western Wall, from the Al-Aqsa, and from that entire old Jerusalem area, which saw heavy, at least hundreds in number, rockets actually being launched towards Israel. There were celebrations in Gaza. There were celebrations among quarters who are anti-Israel. But at this stage, we have to wait as to what next would be the reaction, both from the Iranian side and Hamas side, as well as the Israeli side. The IDF And the Israeli war cabinet has said that they are very much prepared to counter any kind of attacks or any kind of provocation coming in from these regional proxies or Iran. But as there's a heavy backdoor diplomacy also underway from the Americans, from British, as well as from some of the countries in the Middle East, including Saudi, UAE, Qatar, and Egypt, who are trying their best to restore or have peace and have some kind of a semblance so that the war does not go out of hand at this particular stage, because these could have far-reaching regional ramifications of the war extending to a larger area. That is something that most of the Middle Eastern countries do not want. They want peace, they want a ceasefire, and they want hostages to be returned as soon as possible.
Right, and even as we wrap this segment up, and this is still breaking developments that we're bringing to our viewers, Aditya, Hamas and its connections with Doha and Qatar, and then Qatar being an important player on the negotiation table. You were just talking about the ceasefire deals as well. Do you think there's going to be some sort of impact on that front?
Well, I am not too positive on a ceasefire or a hostage deal happening right now, because at a time when the top leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah has been eliminated, and Hamas and Hezbollah are not really facing any advantages right now, both on the Gaza front in southern Israel and the northern front with Lebanon, I don't think the Hamas or Hezbollah would be ready for a ceasefire or a hostage deal at this particular stage, although there's global pressure mounting on them. This is also perhaps to a large extent a battle of survival, at least for Hamas, which is trying its best to maintain order. But most of its men who were trained, who knew the top leadership, have been eliminated, and that's why we do not see much focus, towards the southern front right now, but a lot of conflict and confrontation taking place on the northern front. So the confrontation and the war is far from over. We will see developments thick and fast over the next few days as well. But today's big development also being Yahya Sinwar's killing, whether that has happened or not. The images do point out to that, but we'll have to wait for an official confirmation.
Right on. Aditya Rajkal with the latest details, ladies and gentlemen. Aditya, do stay on with us. We're going to again recap the memory of all the viewers that are watching this right now, because just to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, big breaking developments that could be on the anvil in West Asia. Israeli military says that it is checking the possibility that it has killed Hamas's chief, leader Yahya Sinwar. Initial reports said that Sinwar was killed during the IDF operations in the Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Forces have said that 3 terrorists were eliminated in the strike. The IDF and the ISA are checking the possibility that one of these 3 terrorists could have been Yahya Sinwar. Now, those pictures that are doing the rounds on social media and of course put out by many corroborated sources as well. We're going to still wait for the IDF to confirm it before we call it out. Till then, it's still checking the possibility of Sinwar's death, but it looks most likely that he has been eliminated. At this stage, the identity of the terrorists cannot be confirmed, is what the IDF put out in their tweet as well. In the building where the terrorists were eliminated, there were no signs of the presence of hostages in the area, is what the Israeli forces have again clarified. The forces that are operating in the area, IDF spokesperson said, are continuing to operate with the required amount of caution that is needed. But the basic essential development in West Asia at this point in time is whether Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar has possibly been eliminated or not. There are several questions that one has to answer at this point in time. What happens in Gaza in terms of IDF's expansion of its operations? What happens in Lebanon and Beirut on the northern front? What happens in the IRGC and the political corridors of Iran with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and Iran-backed proxies and their leaders falling down one after the other? What next for Hamas, and who next for Hamas's leadership? Because there's a major vacuum now that Yahya Sinwar is possibly eliminated. Is everything done or not in the Gaza Strip is also something that we'll have to wait and find out. Is the ceasefire deal going to happen or not? That's another big question. US elections right around the corner. Will Iran retaliate like it retaliated after Nasrallah's killing? That's also another aspect one has to look at whilst we're bringing you this breaking development. All right, Aditya, one final question before we wrap this segment up. What are you expecting to happen, most likely. You've been covering the entire West Asian region, the fallout. I remember, visited the Temple Mount as well. In terms of area, the cultural, social, fabric that has been destroyed, razed to the ground. We're looking at Gaza Strip, Beirut completely, destroyed, Hezbollah strongholds being attacked, the IDF and Netanyahu's political pressures, Iran, United States elections, so much at play. What are you expecting and what are you hoping for? Well, it seems like we've lost that line with Aditya. But of course, these are the questions that need to be answered at this point in time. Has the IDF successfully slain, killed, eliminated Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar? Well, that's the big question. And if that has happened, well, then what does that mean for Hamas? What does that mean for Gaza's leadership? What does that mean for Palestine's president? And of course, who's going to be responsible for Hamas's rebuilding, the Gaza Strip's rebuilding? What's going to happen next? What next? Those are the big questions. What next in West Bank? What next in Lebanon? But importantly, Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar, likely eliminated via an IDF attack. Well, time for us to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Top developments continue on the other side. Keep it with News9 Live.
Joe Biden is not going to be the Democratic presidential nominee.
I made my choice. Kamala Harris, the experience.